Last one of the day. And this one is a doozy because it's a full page note. Full page all the way down, man. Let me read it for you first. Do we really think, or do we just have opinions? And spend one time, trying to prove the right or wrong in an awful way or successful way. Okay, context. Who would I hire for stats and games? Well, the statistics. Okay, so like, I definitely was thinking about my startup and game metrics, athletes and chess players and doctors. So athletes, chess players, and doctors are just because they actually have statistics behind their over the years. Like for example, between like football, baseball, soccer, all these games, especially when it came when the betting started on them, more investments started being like thrown at how they play, where they play, and then where their strengths are, because it became like a whole team effort, right? So I want to gamify society, and I build on top of each one's unique skills. But like in a way, there has to be some normal metric. There has to be some not normal metric. There has to be the metrics that are accepted by all. And when I say all, like we're talking everyone from the people from the concierge in building to doctors, because we're all living on this in this society. Each one, from their own perspective, culture is interacting with society differently, but we're engaging with the same kind of like base. And ultimately, if we can establish a strong enough base, or at least a neutral enough base, neutral is the word. If we're able to establish a neutral enough base, then we'll be able to build on top of it. And every single the segment of society, like the hospitality industry, will have its own kind of like different set of rules and different set of skill sets and different set of like point structure and game structure. And then within the hospitality industry, for example, you'll have like the differences between like the chef skill sets versus the bartender skill sets versus the management versus back of the house, front of the house, right? Like, if we provide something that's neutral, then people will be able to build on top of that neutrality. And think of it the same way as like if you actually have a piece of land that's just empty, and you give lots, small plots of land for people, each one will design their own house, right? If you take a country and you give small plots of land in different areas of the country, they will be different because like every area, north, south, mid, around the next river, the river, above the river, will kind of develop their own style. And that's basically the history of human beings. The internet hasn't evolved this way though. The internet has evolved on its own. But in society, we have been evolving this way. We have been like progressing this way. And cities kind of like jumbled things up a bit. But through the internet, people realize the value of community, the strength of community, and how we're able to find them and all that stuff. But most other people, most of the world remain oblivious to the why they're not really like enjoying themselves. Why do I watch reels about cats all day? Because they make me feel good. Why do I have to like watch families like doing certain kinds of stuff? Why is a random guy from New Zealand that goes fishing every weekend and leaves his family at home, or sometimes takes his family and just goes fishing on random islands, entertaining? And just a lot of us kind of yearn for that connection. And I feel with a neutral ground, we'll be able to engage with each other throughout society, live society. So, do we really think, or do we just have an opinion? Because I was thinking, what would be the metrics? And then I started thinking about the metrics of athletes, the metrics of chess players, because they actually have like full blown mathematical metrics based on how many times they win, how many times they lose. What was it called? Come on, Tari. Chess level system. I forgot, man. I studied it for a while, but it was like a year ago when I was still like super into the actual. When I thought it would be easy to just jump into the gamification part instead of like building a platform and starting to get feedback. But so there are different kinds of like codes that different games, different structures in society. Like a good doctor, basically, depending on how many people he kills. A good lawyer, how many lawsuits he wins and how many he loses. And sometimes, if it's like he loses a big lawsuit, it's like maybe the same as losing 15 small ones or something like this. I don't know. Or just, I don't, with lawyers, I think if they win the small ones, but like it doesn't really matter because they have to win one big one for them to kind of like show how much they leveled up, right? Right? And all of these are engagements that we kind of like have to prove ourselves when it comes to it. It's funny because I read a quote today, which is like from Westworld, the one where he describes human beings as the peacocks. But anyways, I wrote this quote down just to let you guys know, but it's about 20 videos down the line. So when we get to it, I will actually like read it for you guys, and I will uh, just kind of like explore it with you. But so, and I started thinking, okay, guys, if I were to kind of like, who are the people that I would want to work with? Because I interviewed mathematicians. They're good when it comes to math, but most of them don't really give a fuck about thinking. All they want to do is math. I interviewed engineers. Engineers want to build stuff. Give us what we want, what you want, and we'll build it for you. And I, I, a lot of them really were just not as creative as I would have liked because they were just more focused on the engineering part. Their creativity is in the engineering part, but the whole sit with me and talk with me. And then I figured if what is it the Declaration of Independence, the oldest person I think in the room out of the people, I think 20 plus people that signed the Declaration of Independence of the United States, most of them were in their mid 20s, man. They were young fuckers. But effectively, what did they do? They started basically thinking about it. And after 2 years, that's all they could think about. And they isolated everything that could go wrong and came about with this small piece of paper that kind of states everything and protects everyone. The same with, I was reading about communism the other day, and just two people that were thinking about something. And what they effectively did was they kept thinking about it. And then after a couple of days, they decided to like take it a step further and become friends and talk about it even more. And eventually they started writing about their thoughts about it. And after 2 years, they had a full blown manifesto. I don't know. I don't really believe in that, but in what they created. But like that's what happened. They sat with themselves and they kind of like allowed things to progress and move forward. So the thought process became like, who are the people that are willing to kind of like, when you actually have, when I have funding, who will I hire? When I have money and people, I want to work with people, who would I hire? And would the people that would want to work for money actually be able to like think about things the way that people that are just passionate about it? Because it seems like you kind of have to be batshit crazy to want to sit with yourself and go like, okay, this is what I think, and this is what I'm going to do about it. And then we're going to come back and meet and see where our thoughts meet. And then we're going to leave and come back and leave and come back. And eventually something's going to click. And until then, we're just going to keep doing something different every single time in order to build something. And it was just like super curious for me because, like, who are the kind of people that would be interested in just talking about how if we could bring society back to neutrality, if we can bring society back down to a neutral stance with the knowledge that we have right now. Again, there are a lot of different fragments of society and segments of society, and each of them live by their own rules. But there's a majority of us that are just abiding by others' rules and not really like pursuing ones that we like or building on top of ones that we like. we're not really building. I'm sorry, man, it's an anime thing, but we're not really building on top of like the communities and to create like guilds or just uh, yeah, like I want to say like merchant houses. Like that's how we actually establish society. Just random people sitting together and going like, this place has a lot of business, so let's just start seeing how best we can like handle it for the better place, the growth of this town and whatever it is. And they started gathering each other with each other, and they started discussing things with each other, and eventually they started having different ideas, and they started approaching business differently, and eventually attracted more people that are interested in doing business better or differently. And then we started building these foundations that eventually turned into the entire societies that we exist in right now. But as the generations move forward, things kind of like have to, I want to say, replenish themselves. Because every once in a while we go too far in one direction. We can't use that point in order to move back. We have to kind of like go back a couple of steps instead of like move forward from there and then detour. Because we're building on top of something that didn't really work. Even though it could still work, it's just like a lot more effort to maintain and all that stuff. But it's a good thought to have, like, is it really people that are thinking that will build something like this? Or it's just opinionated people that just stick to their opinions until they become very much like a part of a reality that we can actually imagine? It's a video.